Welcome to This Week in DeFi. Last week in DeFi, there wasn't a ton of launches. For me, I think the most interesting thing was Monarch Vault. So this is a project which is built on top of Morpho. You can deposit directly into Morpho vaults, but they've released an AI managed vault. So this vault will automatically allocate your funds to the vault with the highest yield. So it's pretty cool. It's like actually legit DeFi AI, I guess. And you can see the docs here. I think it's like a very simple concept, but it's quite good and actually legit rather than some of the AI tokens we've had so far. Besides that, a few other items, a bunch of Sonic launches, Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, but nothing too interesting in my opinion. So I wanted to talk about something else, how to trade without getting liquidated. And before we get into it, if you like this channel, if you like this content, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And yeah, so if you've been trading ETH, bless your heart, you know what a liquidation is because this thing has been down only for months. And if you look at the OI, you can see that there has been definitely some liquidations here in February, here again in later February. Here the OI is moving a little bit weird. It's a interesting pattern, I would say there. But anyways, the point is liquidations are bad. They've been happening. And if you don't want to get liquidated, you need to take action. And what would that action be? So there's two ways to trade with leverage in crypto. One is with perps, but there's actually a better way, in my opinion, which is on-chain margin. And what does that mean? So margin is when you're using lending protocols, and you can do that on-chain with Aave, with MakerDAO, with CurveUSD, Liquidity, and so on. And you can do that natively in the app, so you can just like bareback use Aave, but it's actually much better to use DeFiSaver. And what is DeFiSaver? DeFiSaver, in my opinion, is quite underrated. It's a middleware on top of these lending applications and a few other applications, which has some built-in like automation and zaps and stuff. So let's say you have a position on Aave, you go onto DeFiSaver, you can see your position, the net worth. You can see, so the net worth is like the net of your collateral versus the debt and stuff, and also your tokens. But you can see your individual lending positions. Let's see, you can, it's like a really, just like really nice dashboard of everything that you need to know to manage this position. Yeah, so you can see the supply, borrow, safety ratio, and you can, there's all these buttons so you can easily repay the loan if you need to. You can boost it if you want more leverage. You can close it down. You can borrow against it. You can, all this cool stuff. And it, instead of having to do things in, like usually when you repay, you might have to sell some assets, swap into DAI, and then repay your DAI borrow. Here you can just do it with the same collateral. So it's just one click using a flash loan. So it's pretty cool. But that's not the main thing with DeFiSaver. I would say the main thing is that you can actually get some automation built in as well, where it can actually protect you against liquidations. So to demonstrate that, let's open up a MakerDAO vault. So I'm going to create a vault. I'm going to deposit, this is simulation mode. So I'm going to simulate a 10,000 DAI borrow against 10 ETH. It's going to be a CDP on MakerDAO. And now I have all these options. So these are the automation options, and this is what I want. So they have other stuff like stop loss, take profit, but I want to automate my position to have automatic liquidation protection. This is a simulation, so this is not the real data, but this would be the current price. This will be the price where I choose to repay it, so you can change this. And this is the boost price. An interesting thing about DeFiSaver is that besides saving you from liquidations, it can also boost your leverage. So this can be really useful if you're opening this position for trading purposes. For an example, so let's look at an example in actual life. So back in May of 2021, there was this massive red candle. There's like the Black Thursday of crypto back then. And I was using DeFiSaver. So actually there's tons of liquidations on that day. You can see this huge OI candle, this Darth Maul OI candle, and that's people getting wrecked. But I was not one of those because I was using DeFiSaver. DeFiSaver, what it does is that once it gets below, when the price goes below this point that you set, it will use your collateral to repay your loan. Yeah, so you don't get liquidated. It's possible if price keeps on going lower that you will eventually get liquidated. I suppose it's also possible that if the network is extremely clogged, that DeFiSaver would not be able to save you. But in general, I don't think that's happened before so far, and at least in normal circumstances, it should be fine. For me, it worked really beautifully. I was not liquidated, even though I would have been without DeFiSaver. And the other cool thing is that, so I showed you this thing where it boosts your position. So I was not aware that I had that on, but I did. And I had actually started borrowing on that position. I created that position like down here. So by the time this happened, I had actually had more leverage than I started with, but in a kind of a good way. So I ended up, even after the deleveraging, I think I actually had more money than I expected, or more money than I started with, or something like that. So it's like quite a pleasant outcome for me. And that's actually why I'm like creating this video as well. So this video, so we are sponsored by DeFiSaver, but yeah, the reason I'm making this video is, and the reason I'm actually working with them is because I've used their product. I really like it. Saved my ass. And I think that if you are using a lending protocol, you should be using DeFiSaver because you're always very confident when you open that position up that you aren't going to get licked, but there is a chance that you will. If you do it through DeFiSaver, there's not really, I don't think there's really much more costs, if any, to opening that position, but it can save you when shit hits the fan. Like even if you are pretty conservative, but you go on vacation, there's bad things can happen. Like oh man, my most expensive vacation ever was, I was like in Europe in November of 23, and then FTX happened. And yeah, that was really bad. So you don't want to be caught with your pants down in those kind of situations. So that's where something like DeFiSaver can really save your ass. Yeah. So we talked about low leverage borrows, but what about high leverage borrows? What if you're not trying to borrow like 1.5x, you're trying to do a leverage trade of 3x or 5x or something? So what can you do? You can actually do those kinds of margin positions on DeFiSaver as well. And the benefit is that you get that kind of like liquidation protection. So you would use something like Aave. Aave is good because you have higher LTVs. And here, instead of using borrow, you open up leverage. And then you put in your collateral, then the amount you want to leverage. Here you can go up to 5x. I'm going to use 3x. Yeah, and just like before, you can also use yield-bearing collateral to help give you some safety margin. This is a slippage impact or price impact warning. It's occurring because I'm doing this in simulation mode where they're using very bad routing. In real mode, I think this can still occur, but it would usually not happen on the liquid pairs like ETH-DAI or ETH-USD. Yeah, so you would create this position. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now I have a leverage position and I can automate it just like before. So yeah, so that's how you do leverage on DeFiSaver, and that's how you do leverage without getting licked. And why would you do leverage in the first place? So there are a bunch of reasons. The most degenerate one, obviously, is you want to make more money, but There are other reasons for doing leverage. The most basic reason for borrowing is you have some ETH that you don't want to sell it, and so you want to borrow against it. So that's a really basic reason. If you want to do that, I really recommend using liquidation protection with DeFiSaver. But for higher leverage, why would you use that? So there actually are some non-degenerate reasons for higher leverage as well. And one of them is, so the most common one these days is leverage staking or leveraged yield farming. I'll go over that in another video, but that's a very common one. So that's where you borrow a yield-bearing collateral against a non-yield-bearing collateral. So maybe like perhaps take ETH against ETH would be one example. You could lever up on that, and it wouldn't be as risky as borrowing a bunch of ETH against DAI. And the other thing that you can do is you can also take pair trades. And when you do a pair trade, it's like leveraging the difference between, you're trying to earn off the spread between two assets. And that spread, if they're correlated, like ETH BTC, for instance, is going to be much smaller than the spread between ETH and USD. So in that case, it actually makes sense to use leverage. Otherwise, you're not going to make much money. So this is another reason why you might want to use higher leverage, like 3x or 5x or something. So yeah, so that is DeFiSaver. You can access it at DeFiSaver.com. This video is sponsored by DeFiSaver. Yeah, I really do like them, but it is sponsored because, yeah, we like working with them, and we think it's a good product. And yeah, if you like this content, subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can also view our news on todaydefi.com. This is our newsletter. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for listening.